Could be bad, but let's go look at it. This week in Destiny, 6/19/2025. This week in Destiny, we are getting ready for our next developer stream. These things take time, so we're also telling you about one of the biggest systemic changes we are introducing to Edge of Fate. It's a topic that you may not have heard about yet, so get ready for it. And for the rest of our weekly topics, of course, save the date, all dungeons and Ride of the Nine introducing additive melee damage, exotic armor tuning preview, last call for final shape, Bungie rewards. Tune into our developer live stream. We have a developer live stream coming on June 24th, so that's next week. It's gonna be next Tuesday, I would assume. Yes, next Tuesday. They're going to have a developer live stream that is 10 a.m. Pacific time. Usually these happen right at reset time, which they are this time as well. They're going to be sharing many details about Armor 3.0 and the new ability stat system to show some of the new weapons and more. You can get a nice emblem if you tune in. How long are they wanting you to tune in? At least 15 minutes. So that's not really that long. Usually these live streams go for about an hour. So this is pretty easy emblem to get. It's not really that impressive to me. Usually I enjoy the emblems a little bit more, but this one not as impressive, but still a good emblem nonetheless for those of you that like to collect emblems. Ride of the Nine continues. Guardians, the Emissary of the Nine, still require your attention. After making all dungeons available last week and turning on increased rewards for them, we are entering a new Ride of the Nine cycle. All dungeons remain active and can be played at players' leisure, but only one of those has increased rewards active, so you can go back and farm resources and weapons if you're still chasing some of them. We have another update coming on July 1st. The Emissary will start giving away nonary engrams that are filled to the brim with hand-picked cosmetic rewards spanning multiple years of Destiny 2 content. Some are, however, some are newer, like holo chips, and others are a blast from the past, like the Crimson Days emotes. They've already told us all this. We've gone through this schedule. This is in the last TWID. If you need help understanding this schedule, come over, catch us live while we're over on Twitch doing Ride of the Nine helps. Ask any questions you might have, and come in and get it on a run if you would like to. Melee damage is changing in Edge of the Fate. Hello there. This is Destiny 2 Sandbox team ready to talk about one of the most significant systemic overhauls coming with Edge of the Fate. Additive melee damage stacking. The short version of this is almost all sources of increased melee damage are buffed. All sources of increased melee damage stack at full efficiency in PvE. And we're using additive damage increase calculation for melee damage. Would that be something, I assume, kind of like the cross counter with Liar's Handshake? I would assume maybe they're doing something like that kind of across the board. Almost all sources of increased melee damage are buffed. All sources of increased melee damage stack at full efficiency in PvE. So pretty much we're just gonna be punching a lot, like a lot. For those of you that are like Titans and hunters with roly punchies, or Ascension and stuff like that, using your threaded Spectre and everything. It sounds like it'll be fun, especially with the new Gifted Conviction, increasing your Tempest Strike. That would be pretty cool too. How melee damage worked in the past. Currently in Destiny 2, most sources of increased damage in Destiny 2 are multiplicative. Two hypothetical 50% damage increases are multiplied together for a total of 125% damage increase. This approach to damage increase has some problems. For one, the more damage increasing effects applied at a time, the more powerful they all become, which means that the best builds and strategies can start to revolve around simply having as many buffs as possible. Makes sense. This is a pattern we saw in Destiny 2 prior to the mutually exclusive empowering damage buff systems for weapons. Additionally, balancing the game becomes more and more difficult the more sources of increased damage we add. We do not want to have to choose between bosses being one-shot by players who are stacking as many buffs as possible, or bosses feeling like bullet sponges to players who are not. It makes sense. I mean, if you're a very, very active Destiny player, and say you're doing a flying knee build with the Titan, and you're just absolutely destroying every yellow bar on your way through a GM, whereas people that don't understand these builds are like,
how is that happening? It takes me 3 hours to shoot this guy.
They want to, I assume, make it to where the melee damages aren't as easy to get stacked up, is what it seems like I'm reading. When Edge of the Fate is released on July 15th, melee damage increases in Destiny 2 will be additive. This means two hypothetical 50% damage increases will be added together for a total of 100%. So bringing it down 25%, not really all that bad. But once you start to get 3 buffs, 4 buffs, or anything like that, then you start seeing a crazy hindrance to that melee ability. This does result in a lower damage ceiling for melee abilities, and it's unlikely that most bosses will ever be one shot with melee abilities going forward. Makes sense. But because we do not need to worry about someone stacking these melee buffs and trivializing most content in the game, we can do very cool things. It kind of levels the playing. It sucks because if you're a high-end content Destiny player, you enjoy doing fun stuff like this. It is fun for the game, for everybody that plays it, if you understand how to do it. But it does make the game less approachable for newer players because they have to make these bosses substantially harder to kill because we can do things like that. So it makes it more difficult for newer players coming in that don't understand how to do something like that. So I understand why they're doing it. They want to level the playing field and make it to where the hard content is hard for everybody without it being too hard for the entry-level people. They want to be able to have that flexibility to do that. Catering to the people that are coming in, catering to new players, catering to young players, catering to a newer audience and stuff like that. It kind of sucks, because whenever they do that, they kind of like let us down that, the audience that's always here, the audience that enjoys the game so much that we just breathe every aspect of it, and it's just like we want to be able to one-shot those bosses and do fun builds like that because the community thought of these builds, so we want to use them because they're fun. It kind of downplays that a little bit, but it is what it is. I'm not mad at this, but also at the end of the day, it's neither here nor there for me. I mean, we're still going to find a way to do crazy damage if we're just not punching everything. Systemic upgrades or updates. In this new system, every effect that increases melee damage has been converted to use additive damage stacking. Every item that has changed as a part of this list or has been listed below. With a single exception. The new melee stat introduced in Armor 3.0 increases the damage of melee abilities when going over 100 points, up to an extra 30% at 200 stat. The damage bonus provided by this stat is considered to be an increase to the base damage of the player's melee attacks and is multiplicative. Yeah, so basically whenever you're getting any increases off of that, of course, it's from the base damage, so it's going to be greater. You're going to see that increase a lot more, and it's going to multiply, as it should. But stacks on top of each other don't multiply, they just add. About glaives, as part of our melee overhaul, we are revisiting the role of glaives in the sandbox. We would like glaives to find a more permanent home in melee focused builds. Winter's Bite, been using it in Ghost of the Deep. It's strictly melee focused. We're not even hardly shooting that thing, so makes sense. They've probably seen a lot of that and kind of enjoyed where we were going in that direction. Where they provided a defensive tool to help you close in on your targets and a faster and more potent unpowered melee ability that Guardians would have otherwise. More potent, unpowered melee ability than Guardians would have otherwise. Got it.
I read that wrong.
That's right. Glaive melee is considered an unpowered melee. We knew that. If you've seen us doing Ride of the Nine using Winter Bite or anything like that, it's an unpowered melee attack. It gets buffed with Syntheseps, all of that stuff. Anything that increases the strength of an unpowered melee ability will now increase the strength of Glaive melee. Okay? Hasn't it already done that? Including the melee stat. This does come at a cost. While glaives have much clearer role and have a higher damage ceiling, we need to reduce their base melee damage in PvE to bring it more in line with an unpowered melee attack. But even after these changes, glaive melee has a much higher damage per second output than unpowered melee attacks do. They should. So what are we doing? Are we nerfing? Glaive melee is now considered to be a type of unpowered melee ability. I thought it always was. They now receive melee damage increases at full effect in all cases where an unpowered melee ability would, including the damage increase from Syntheseps. They were already receiving damage increase from Syntheseps. Am I tripping? This was already a thing. We're using this in Ghost of the Deep right now. Like, we've been using this. Increase from Syntheseps, knockout, offensive bulwark, combination blow, spark of feedback, Worm Gods, Banner of War, and Stylish Executioner. I thought they already got all this. Glaive melee now triggers all effects that are triggered by any melee ability. They will no longer benefit from the weapon damage bonuses such as Radiant and it's no longer weapon damage. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so this is still doing the same thing, but the way they worded it is weird because they said it will now receive melee damage increases at full effect in all cases where because it always has. I don't know why they said they now will receive, because it always has. It's keeping all of these and it receives the new scaling. It's no longer going to benefit from damage bonuses, weapon damage bonuses, which at the end of the day, it really wasn't anyway. I mean, I'm sure Radiant was helping and stuff like that. It doesn't, the Radiant, you're not going to get the damage buff from like standing in a well or something like that, I would assume, because it's just a melee. So it makes sense. Effects that modify the behaviors of basic melee, such as Titan Aspect Knockout that changes the basic melee attacks from kinetic to arc, will not affect the behavior of the glaive melee. So they're not going to, basically anything that would normally affect a weapon, you're not going to see that happen. Glaive melee damage in PvE has been adjusted to compensate for the increased access to melee damage increasing effects. Glaive melee damage against minors and majors has been reduced to 40%. Glaive melee damage against champions and mini bosses has been reduced to 28.5. Glaive melee damage against bosses and vehicles reduced by 50%. Hopefully, I don't understand this because I feel like we've always had this. So they're telling us they're giving us this, but they're not. They're not giving us a Syntheseps increase. We've already had it. Basically, all we're going to see and all we're really going to care about is this big decrease right here. I mean, it's really going to take some just playing around with it to see how much they actually... I feel like maybe they're going to give us... We're going to see more of this. I feel like they're not wording this correctly. I want a deeper understanding on what they're talking about here. Because glaive melee is now considered a type of unpowered melee ability. I feel like it always was, and Syntheseps always worked with it because we know that because we're using it right now. If they're telling us it worked with it, it will work with it now, and it already did, then all we're catching is actually a nerf. We're not catching any type of buff like they're kind of leading us to believe right here. So I want more about this.
I want more. And I know I shouldn't.
I really do. I feel like we're not. I feel like I want to post that somewhere and just get them to talk to that more because I feel like we already have a Syntheseps buff, so all we're getting is a nerf here. So I want them to explain that a little bit more. So more to come on this. I want to understand this a little bit more, to be honest. I really do. Before I decide if it's good or bad. It seems like it's all bad right now. It seems like that's the only thing that really matters right there to us. And that's not good because there was no reason to do that. It was hard enough to find out, you know, to use Winter's Bite and have Banner of War Titan going and with Syntheseps on and absolutely smoke Ekthar by doing that. It was difficult enough to like come to that build. I mean, it was there in the past. People have used it in the past. But it was difficult enough to make yourself do that build and understand it for them to just be like, yeah, you're doing too much. Get rid of it. That would kind of suck. More to come on it. It looks like these are all the melee changes, obviously. Basically, all you have to do is understand that they are going from a stacking multiplicative buff to the way they stack is going to be additive now. So it's going to be a little bit less of a ceiling. You're not going to see that much of a change on the minor buffs. So whenever you put two buffs together, if it's two 50% buffs, they're going to come up to the 100 like they should because they add together. Whereas used to, they would do a multiplicative and you would end up getting more damage than you would think you would normally get. I always figured they were additive. I didn't realize they stacked multiplicatively. So that's on me. So can't wait to see how this plays out. But I don't know if Melee was in need for an update, to be honest, but we'll see how it plays out. It's kind of nobody asked for this. I don't really think anybody was really worried about this. They seems like they keep on trying to nerf the melees, so it's not good. Looks like all of the exotic weapon or exotic armor tuning coming in. We always get this whenever there's a new DLC. You'll see a lot of the exotic armor just getting kind of dogged on. So rest in peace melee builds. I don't know, not for certain. I don't think so. I think it's just we're just gonna have to build it a new way. You have to focus it a new way. You're gonna have to focus on buffs that matter more. Weapon perks changing, 1-2 punch, all of this stuff. Damage bonus increased from 100 to 150%. So they're increasing a lot of stuff. It looks like we have a lot of increases to the melee damage coming from regular buffs from other things. So that's good. If you're increasing the melee damage across the board on all of these different exotic weapons and exotic weapon perks and stuff like that, if you're increasing the melee damage across the board, taking it from a multiplicative to an additive doesn't really seem like it's that big of a deal. We might end up doing relatively the same, if not more damage by them doing this. Pride and Vice worth it now with glaives? Yes, I assume, because that's going to be strictly a glaive one, because it increases the weapon damage as well as give you the Syntheseps buff too. So yes, we got a bunch of exotic armor updates. Go through this in your free time. If any of these are something that you use a lot or anything like that, if you're trying to make builds for the upcoming DLC, make sure that you go through these and see which ones are doing what. Avant Leap now increases duration, suspend applied. Actium War Rigs, Alpha Loopy, Starfire Protocol. Now also activates on radiant damage. Increased fusion grenade energy. Nice. Oh, what are they doing to Geomags? Geomags Reduce super energy granted by ionic traces to 4% from 7. Retune sprinting to top off bolt charge. Decrease bolt charge stacks required before sprinting will grant additional stacks from 6 to 5. Decrease the amount. So not really. I mean, the super energy from ionic traces might slow down some of those builds, but maybe not as much as you would think from 7 to 4. I mean, it's almost cut in half from the ionic traces, so we'd have to just see how that feels whenever you're actually using it. So whenever I look at these, I just try to like look at which ones are going to be kind of like things that I would use. I don't really use Oath Keepers. Did you say Oath Keepers earlier, Zabby? I think you said Oath Keepers. Bakris got a nerf. I don't really use Bakris, so Oath Keepers have not quite been worth the time investment to overdraw the damage bonus. Okay, so they've kind of made it better. Oath Keepers increased maximum damage bonus from 150 to 200. Now provides more of the total damage bonus earlier in the overdraw. Okay, I'm probably still never going to use Oath Keepers, to be honest. What do they do to Bakris? Effects are now active when either Arc or Stasis Super is equipped. Reworked Light Shift no longer provides a non-stacking surge damage bonus. Now grants 10% damage for eligible weapons per stack. Stacks up to 3 times. While active, weapon final blows grant class ability energy. So it's no longer a weapon surge. Now you have to build it up the more times that you shift. Now grants a 10% damage for eligible weapons per stack. I feel like you need to get the dodge back a lot faster if this is the case. You can't dodge enough to get that even remotely viable. Maybe the idea was never to use this in boss damage. To be fair, I just use Foe Tracer, but I mean maybe the idea was never use this in boss damage, and that's what they're doing. Winner's Bite now receives melee damage bonuses from a variety of sources. Reduced enhanced melee damage with ammo to 20% versus bosses down from 50%. So they really saw us using Winner's Bite and they wanted no part of it. They wanted no part of us using Winner's Bite on a boss. Final Shape Bungee rewards. This is your last chance to get all these Final Shape ones. Anything that you might have missed, your jackets and stuff from doing the contest mode, dungeons and things like that. Have some known issues, have some art down here. That kind of does it for the Twit, guys. Make sure you tune in next week whenever they're doing the dev live stream. They got a lot to talk about. They have a lot to talk about. They need to kind of expand on the melee a little bit more, I think, honestly. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video or found it informative, please make sure you like, comment, share it with a friend, follow and subscribe to know which platform you're on. And we'll see you in the next one.